If you are a longtime resident of Wake County, or if you've just been living here for a couple of years, then you understand that you can expect an array of weather patterns to come through this area. Joining us to share tips to keep you and your family safe during this holiday season and winter season is Jeffrey Hammerstein, District Chief for Wake County Emergency Medical Services. Thank you so much for being here.
Morning, Eric.
You guys still remain very busy during the winter months because there are a lot of folks with misconceptions about some of the injuries and illnesses that can come up on you during the winter season. Can you talk about some of the common injuries that you see during the winter months?
Oh, absolutely, Eric. You know, someone may not realize it, but hypothermia is actually one of the things that we see most often. Now, when you use the term hypothermia, a lot of times you're thinking in terms of someone trapped in a snowbank for a few hours or something. That fortunately, that's not apt to happen around our area. But what we do see with hypothermia are people that don't necessarily have the means to keep themselves as warm as they need to. Now, we may be referring to people who have no homes or people living in homes that were inadequately heated. So that's a common thing. As we get older, our bodies become less and less able to insulate and hold in the heat that we generate. So what may be surprising to some is that we could be talking about hypothermia in relatively mild temperatures.
And, you know, when we talk about those that are outdoors for short periods of time, let's say maybe it's to work on the car or possibly even out shoveling snow. Even during those periods of time, there's a lot of folks that aren't paying attention to what their body is telling them.
Certainly that's true, and I think with shoveling snow, and there again, we don't have to deal with it too often around here, but shoveling snow can really be a very strenuous activity. So it's not necessarily uncommon to see somebody who is susceptible to having a heart-related issue or a respiratory-related issue understand that you can really be pushing it a lot. If you need to take a break, take a break. The snow will be waiting for you when you come off break and you can finish shoveling. The other thing that we really see a lot of in the winter months are those slips and falls. Here in our area, we know it can be warm one day and cold and icy the next, and it can kind of sneak up on us. So on those mornings that we get up and there's ice on the front steps, ice in the parking lots, we go to one right after the other where people have stepped out, slipped, and fallen on their front steps, gotten out of the car in the parking lot at the office and walking across the lot, slip on an ice patch and go down. That's a really common thing. And we see a lot of it.
What are some of the things that folks should do to prepare for the elements outdoors before they head out?
I'd say layered clothing, dressing warm enough, fitting your dressing to what your activities are going to be. If you're going to be out doing something athletic where you know you're generating a lot of heat, you're much less apt to be in a situation where you're going to have a cold or frostbite type emergency. On the other hand, if you're going to go out and walk trails for several hours and it's really, really cold, then you definitely need to be conscious about, are your feet warm enough? Are they staying dry? We know that if body parts are getting wet, they're losing heat much, much more quickly.
Also, talk about some of the injuries resulting, let's say, from kids going out wanting to play sledding.
You know, we talk about bicycle helmets when you're riding bicycles. When we were kids, that wasn't as much such the cool thing to do. We see it fortunately more and more, and it's absolutely vital. We talk about helmets with skateboards and rollerblades and that type of thing. It's not a bad idea to have on a bicycle helmet if you're out sledding.
Unfortunately, the winter weather also causes a number of traffic accidents. What are some of the tips you have for motorists if they are involved in such accident?
Absolutely. You know, anytime there are icy roads, we're going to get out, law enforcement is going to get out and plead, please stay off the roads. It's a predictable message, but it's one we still are compelled to get out and say because everybody doesn't necessarily heed that. If you are involved in an accident, it makes sense, particularly with slick conditions, it makes sense to stay in your car, turn on your hazard lights, and call for help.
And Jeffrey, what are some tips to possibly help citizens avoid being involved in such accidents?
Again, like so many things, I think awareness is the most critical part. Again, we talk about our environment around here. If we had inches of snow for months at a time, people could get acclimated to that and learn how to drive on that. But we see our warm and then cold and warm and cold, and it's not uncommon at all in this area for us to have just the icy bridge or just the icy slick spot in a particular area. We know when we get up in cold conditions in the morning that there are going to be hazards, and we just have to drive accordingly.
Okay, Jeffrey Hammerstein, District Chief for Wake County EMS, thank you so much for being here.